Welcome, people. So we had UFC Vegas, Bonfim versus Brown this weekend. Matches basically just ended a bit earlier. But to get into this recap, review, and breakdown, everything that happened. We had a couple of upsets, a couple of as expected, and then just a couple interesting dynamics here and there. But let's get into it. I do want to say though, when it came to the prelims, I did pretty good with predictions. I did pretty okay, but then when it came to the main card, like my main card picks were honestly cooked for this card. But we'll get them better next time, though. But let's start off. No, we can actually open this compared to previously. But we have Zachary Reese versus Jackson McVeigh. It's kind of this one of the predictions started off strong, getting the picks right. Zachary Reese versus McVeigh was pretty interesting. McVeigh basically tried to put under pressure a lot pretty early. Like he was doing pretty well in the first round. He was really pressuring Reese, constantly threatening him. Like he was the one who was landing the more dangerous strikes. But when when it actually came back around, Reese managed to find that submission. He managed to recover pretty well, came out, kind of managed to get a good advantage on McVeigh. Like he timed him pretty well. I think he basically was just slicker when it counted. I think that's really the name of the game. But McVeigh had a lot more power punches. McVeigh was a lot more dangerous. Like even looking at the significant strikes, despite there being such a big difference in the total strikes on the favor of Reese, you see that the significant strikes were actually landed by McVeigh. He was the more threatening fighter for the majority of that fight until Reese managed to find that timing and cinch up that submission and close the show. So that was a good show of grit. Tough luck for McVeigh. Moving on to the next fight. Of all my predictions on this card, this is the one that I'm most proud of because this one went exactly as I called it. Despite Marcos never having any submissions in his UFC career so far, I called that his grappling was sharper. I know Miles Johns is known for having his wrestling pedigree, but Marcos is the one who's the better and more technical grappler. I called it. Johns is, even with his striking, is more so dangerous power puncher, throws big winging shots, but when it comes to technical exchanges, he tends to lack a bit. And then even though he has kind of bully wrestling, he's kind of similar to Justin Gaethje in the aspect of, yeah, you have the wrestling, but it's not actually a proper part of your fight strategy. Here and there, you might get a takedown. Here and there, you might have a decent wrestling defense, but it's not actually a dominant part of his actual game plan and his fight style. But when you look at Marcos, his grappling is a much more technical aspect in comparison to John's. Called it by second round submission, went exactly as I called it. Miles Johns came out the first round, big winging shots. He was tagging Marcos here and there. Marcos initially seemed to be a bit uncomfortable, finding his range, finding his pressure, finding his timing. You even saw his stance gradually adjust and shift in response to the more comfortable he got in the fight. Despite Johns being the more dangerous striker as far as power shots are concerned, you saw Marcos slowly time him more, time the knees up the body very well, time the uppercuts, time the takedown attempts. Like overall, he just mixed it more and more better. And once he got to that second round, call him with the shots, call him with the knees, managed to take him down, really kept it up in a grappling exchange. Nobody took, even you even heard the teams of Miles John saying that he's just using the takedown to slow down the fight and that it's not actually a threat. But that was a big mistake because when Marcos got the grappling position, he kept the pressure up. He kept increasing pressure more and more and managed to slip in. Got his first UFC submission. So his first submission, and I called it. So happy to see that that one went more or less exactly how I called it from start to finish. Moving on, I know I just had that rant about I'm right. This one I was wrong. I had Tisha Pennington winning this fight. It ended up going to Denise Gomes. I think, oh, based off what how it looked in my perspective, a lot of the reasons why when I saw this fight, Tisha Pennington displayed all the things that made me think why she would have won. I thought she was the more technical fighter. In this exchange, she looked like the more technical fighter. She looked like she had better timing on the shots. She had better overall skill set. She had better timing. She had better adjustment. I even feel like she had better distance management, better head movement, better footwork. Overall, she just looked like the better fighter. Or more accurately, she looked like the better martial artist. But Denise Gomes looked like the better fighter. Gomes, despite being a lot of time winging on those shots, she had the bigger punches. Her hits landed, cost more. Her hits were obviously drew bigger reactions. She just overwhelmed Pennington a bit, constantly in her face, constantly throwing, constantly dangerous. Pennington would hit Gomes and Gomes would keep marching forward. Whereas when Gomes hit Pennington, Pennington had to reset. And you saw that happen consistently throughout the fight. The first round, you saw Pennington get taken down twice just by brute force. Gomes constantly charged at her, showed her no respect, and constantly just readjusted until she just cornered her. In that third round, you even saw exactly what I'm describing play out perfectly. You saw Pennington hit her with this nice judo kick throw, completely got the position on Gomes up against the cage, easy position. For him. You watch Gomes brute force just reverse the position. Quite literally, being on the ground had a stronger base, kind of just out muscled Pennington a bit, just managed to fix her, adjust her position, and just reverse that throw after coming from a fully down position. So you saw that Gomes, not saying that Gomes is a shit martial artist, not saying that at all, but when it came to just straight what were the things that each fighter had better at, Paddington looked like the more clean martial artist, the better striking, the better timing, overall just better understanding of the fight. But then you saw Gomes kind of just flip the board with all that, charge forward, wing big shots, kind of just outwilled her, outgrinded her, and you saw that played out. Gomes with the decision win due to all of those factors. Moving on, we have a next fight that I predicted: Josh Hokett versus Max Gimenez. I'm going to point this out every single time. The new generation of heavyweight is here. You're seeing, as I said before, you see a lot of new blood in the heavyweight division. And you're seeing a lot less just big, plotty men, just fat men moving forward. Seeing a lot more people who are in better shape, better movement, better striking that isn't just hitting hard. As I had said before in the prediction, I chose Hokett because I thought his striking would have been better. I thought that he'd have more wherewithal. I thought that have enough understanding and enough power that while his power isn't super crazy, it's really his accuracy more so than just his raw power that really does it. But while his power isn't it is very much dangerous because this is the heavyweight division, but he had the timing and the understanding of the fight. And you saw him push the pace from the beginning. Jimenez came out with the big, dangerous leg kicks. You saw that first leg kick, that first low leg kick completely threw Hokik off guard. Still adjusted, clean boxing, good aggression, incredible speed. Combine all of that, despite being the smaller fighter in this matchup, timed him, found his chin, and put him out fast. Incredible performance. He looked great. He closed it real fast. He didn't, despite being compromised, despite being against a dangerous opponent, kept his confidence, kept his composure, kept his striking, kept to the game plan, and got it done. Beautiful performance. We also see that we have Chael Sonnen from Timu a little bit with that post-fight speech and call out, kind of trying to whether it be paying homage or trying to replicate whichever one. Personally, I wasn't too impressed myself with that post-fight speech, but I know a lot of people would go crazy for it. However, End of the day, fantastic performance from Josh Hokett. Looking forward to see how a lot of these upcoming UFC heavyweight contenders pair and match against each other in the future movements. Going forward, oh yeah, I also got to address this before. I saw that he called out Walter Walker. I think it's a little early for that, to be honest. As we all know, I'm high on Walter Walker right now. And while Josh Hogan had a great performance, he showed a lot of susceptibility to those early leg kicks. And while that speed stuff it might be dangerous, but Walter Walker's fight IQ does seem a bit higher than the average heavyweights as well. If he gets a little bit too carefree with those and try to just charge forward with fat, big bloody shots, he might charge and get caught with one of those heel hooks, so off guard. So I'd say give him give him somebody else in between. Give him Taliesin Teixeira. That's a good fight. Rather than having Josh Okick dive into Walter Walker, give him a different Brazilian. Charge. Let's see how he does against Taliesin Teixeira, and then whoever comes out the victor in that, then they will go against Walter Walker. Moving on, we have Mara Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalancati. This fight is also our one that really more or less went exactly as I called it. Um, Mara Bueno Silva, as a fighter, I enjoy her. I like seeing her, but she, as I said in my prediction, she always showcases types of gaps. Marabano Silva, despite being an experienced fighter, despite being against some of the who's who, despite having a plethora of different experiences to draw upon, she just seems to really always have a bit of gaps where it counts. And you also see her wither away a bit once it gets a little bit too tough. In this matchup, it initially started off with a battle of the low kicks. They each threw pretty damning leg kicks against each other. Jacqueline Cavalancati, due to that boxing stance, heavy on the lead leg. Mara Bueno Silva was initially taking advantage of it, but Cavalancati just has better hands. Mara Bueno Silva isn't the best striker as far as just pure actual hand striking, but you saw that come out. Cavalancati's strikes were faster, more accurate, more timing. If anything, Cavalancati's biggest dismay in the pure striking aspect was just being a bit hesitant because she didn't want to get caught by any grappling or get caught being too careless. You saw her charge forward and make those adjustments when necessary. Initially, both being hesitant after encouragement from each his corner, and they got a little bit more scrappy. You saw that Marabona Silva helped her more or less, in my opinion. She was winning a lot of those leg kick battles, but then Kavala and Kati overall, better striking, better accuracy, better timing. Even when you saw those clinch exchanges here and there, it wasn't long. None of those were actually able. Marabona Silva was able to dictate the pace of the fight through those. Kavlankati kept getting back to her area of expertise, which is striking from the outside, controlling the fight with the kicks. Whenever the kicks got too much, mix it up with the hands, made her refocus, get back to the fight. She kind of just easily just dominated. By the end of this fight, you even saw the difference in how their faces looked. Like once again, like Marabona Silva, for a fighter as experienced as she is, there's still those gaps that just feel a bit lacking, especially when it comes to ranked fighters and so on and so forth. Um, so now our pick right with Jacqueline Cavalancati. For me, I think that if Mara Bueno Silva isn't able to better address a lot of those gaps in the future, it might be time for her to retire, to be honest. Take a little bit less damage on her body in some of these matchups and like perhaps recenter her, refocus and family and such. Moving on, we have a fight that got this pick wrong, but I'm not mad at it. As I said for the beginning, this would have been a firefight. We had Ricky Simone versus Raoni Barcelos. In this fight, it, as I said from the very beginning, Raoni Barcelos is a dog. He's constantly dangerous for everybody. All those fighters outside of the top 10 even some of those early top 15 fighters always have problems with his grappling. And in this fight, despite Ricky Simon being a wrestler himself, you saw some of those differences. As the announcers themselves were saying, their grappling exchanges kind of nullified each other, but Raoni Barcelos was just from start to finish, he was the more aggressive fighter. He was he charged more, landed his shots were the bigger shots. His strikes were more frequent. He was pushing the pace more. And whenever it came into those firefight exchanges, and you'd have moments for both fighters, but if Simone is throwing 10 strikes, Barcelos would throw 12. If Simone landed 5 big shots, Barcelos would come with 6. Barcelos kept coming back, and there were times where you saw, even in the moments where Simone was the one who the pendulum swung in his direction, you always saw Barcelos sometimes manually reach up and pull it back towards himself. That's kind of how it felt. It felt like Barcelos wasn't giving him an inch. He wasn't giving him a millimeter, to be honest. It felt like every time Simone tried to forcefully carve a path for himself, Barcelos would jump in at him and pull him back. That's what it felt like. It felt like a constant in your face fight. The one who showed more signs of being getting tired and needing a break was Ricky Simone, because Barcelos was just so in his face the entire fight. And despite Simone having great moments himself, landing a lot of big shots, like constantly, had even a couple moments where it looked like Barcelos was in danger. Even in those moments, Rani Barcelos still came back. Great performance for both fighters, but you definitely saw who wanted it more in this one, and it was Rani Barcelos. Can't take any of that away from them. Moving on, we have Hyder Emil versus Jamal Emmers. Hyder Emil was my pick for this fight. He was also a slight favorite in this one coming up, but Jamal Emmers got it done. But when you look at it in this matchup, Hyder Emil's biggest advantage is kind of similar, a bit similar to Marab, like very, very slightly similar in the aspect that it's pace. He weaponizes pace. He's constantly in your face, constantly here, keeps trotting forward. However, by the end of this fight, Emmers completely had exhausted that pace. You saw Hyder Emil in that first round, Hyder Emil march forward through multiple strikes. When it came to the striking exchange, they seemed to be initially a bit even. I'd even argue that here and there, Emmers was the one who looked sharper and cleaner in those exchanges. But because of Emil's pace and constant forward motion and lack of backing up, he was the one, in my opinion, who was winning those. I actually give Hyder Emil the first round. When you look at it, Hyder Emil kept coming to the point that eventually he was starting to overwhelm Emmers a bit. There, Emmers then couldn't really get him out of his face. He kept breaking his distance advantage. Hyder Emil closed the gaps pretty well by just charging in. He fought his way in. And it was becoming a lot pressure, a bit too much for Jamal Emmers, in my opinion, which is why Emmers started mixing up the grappling more. Initially, Hyder Emil still had the energy, was fighting off those exchanges, managed to work his way up and get right back in face. It was still a very more or less a bit even, slightly leaning towards Hyder Emil when it came to those striking exchanges. In the second round is where you started seeing the change, like a complete shift. You saw Emmer start mixing in the grappling. Emmer start seeing the effectiveness of the grappling. Mind you, Emmer threw more, used more takedowns and more takedown attempts in this fight than he had for his entire UFC career. Just to show the difference in it. Emmers started using the takedown attempts more, started noticing the more effectiveness. They were effective way to slow down Hyder Emil, effective way to exhaust him a bit. It's an effective way to basically get positional dominance an effective way to really like have the path of least resistance. So once Jamal Emmer started noticing that, he started really upping those takedowns, and it takes a lot of endurance. As a former wrestler myself, it takes a really good cardio and shape to be able to use it as consistently as Jamal Emmers was. Got to the third round, and that was the name of the game: takedowns. Like, we don't want to strike anymore. And Jamal Emmers had great IQ, both him and his team, to recognize that and adapt the strategy. That they basically just overwhelmed and exhausted Harder and Mill by just relentless takedown and then constant submission attempts, constantly getting him with that arm triangle attempt, and that was all she wrote. All ended up resulting in Harder and Mill just being able to fight off submissions rather than fight off takedowns. So overall, excellent strategy, excellent adjustments by Jamal Emmers on a great fight. Moving on, we got the main event. Well, the main card, more accurately. As I said before, prelims I did pretty good on picks. Main card, my picks were cooked. This fight right here is actually the only one on the whole main card that I got accurate. But in my defense, this one did go exactly as I called it as well. So we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Marco Tulio. Ended this in the second round, if I'd also called that. But as far as finish, this fight, as I said before, wasn't going to be a long fight. This was not going to go the distance. This was not going to go to decision. It basically started off full on striking match between two knockout artists, while Marco Tulio tried to mix in the takedowns to kind of slow the fight down a bit, but it basically ended how I expected it to. Christian Leroy Duncan came doing a lot. Strikes, knees. I think he literally opened the fight with a flying knee attempt. Christian Leroy Duncan was trying any and everything to get him out of there. Marco Tulio himself tried to be a bit cleaner, a bit sharper, better strikes, tried to slow down, fight a bit more, tried to use the grappling a bit to adjust the pace, especially when he got overwhelmed. Constantly was trying to make smart decisions, whereas it felt like Leroy Duncan just relied on training and instinct. Dove at him, threw strikes, mixed it up. When I say mix it up, I mean literally like what he threw was mixed up. Through spinning attacks, through elbows, through straight hooks, like whole punches. Like, he was doing everything he could to get Tulio out of there. When that happened, you saw that great exchange of pace. You saw that Tulio was really trying to gather himself a bit more and not get caught up. But when that second round came out, Leroy Duncan was right back into it again. Managed to catch him with that spinning attack, and it just got him right. It got Tulio right on the chin, just enough to discombobulate him. And Leroy Duncan dove at him. Like, he smelt that blood in the water, and he just threw an overwhelming amount of attacks at him. Christian Leroy Duncan very much was on a mission, and Marco Tulio just wasn't able to stop him with everything that was coming at him. Overall, Christian Leroy Duncan had another highlight performance, another display in his win streak, another display in his resume. Really looking forward to how Christian Leroy Duncan continues to evolve, and we're also looking forward to see how Marco Tulio rebuilds after this defeat. Appears he has Oliveira in his corner, so perhaps maybe incorporating a bit more of a grappling strategy in situations like this. I know everyone's not like Christian Leroy Duncan, especially as Christian Leroy Duncan said, Marco Tulio hadn't lost in how long? Was it 10 years that he hadn't lost? So even to be against that caliber of opponent, you really see just how much Christian Leroy Duncan is improving himself. He's becoming, even though he is still the knockout artist we knew him as, the way how he executed his striking has definitely been looking a lot better recently. Looking forward to all of this. Let's see if this one loss, after such a long years of domination and victory, let's see how that also affects Marco Tulio. Overall, great fight. let's see what's next for the middleweight division. Moving on, we have Chris Padilla versus Ismail Bonfim. Bonfim is the older brother of the main event, Gabriel Bonfim. In this fight, I had Ismail Bonfim. Ismail Bonfim did miss weight by about 5 pounds, which is a pretty significant more weight discrepancy. I think that might even be an indication for like how what happened as the fight went on. You kind of saw those cardio issues come into place a bit, but that also could just be because of the pace that Chris Padilla was putting on him. I had Bonfim winning this fight because Bonfim has such clean striking, such incredible striking, great takedown defense, good fight IQ. Overall, I just thought that Ismail Bonfim was the better fighter, to be blunt. And I think that we saw glimpses of that in this matchup. Like in the first round, like they both looked pretty good, but you saw Bonfim be the one who had the better boxing exchanges, crisp, fast striking. He's the one who actually got the takedown in this, despite I believe that Chris Padilla was the one who launched the takedown attempts, but the only takedown in this fight is from Ismail Bonfim, as you can see right here, when he reversed it in the first. You saw, and then especially when you add the weight gaps onto it, Ismail Bonfim already cracks. Like he already is a hard hitter, especially when you add his combinations. Fast combinations, hard hitter. But then when you add the fact that he's coming in with added weight, that means that his shots were hitting even harder. And Chris Padilla got hit with a lot of that. Despite him having his high guard, his Muay Thai stance, he still got hit with a lot of those, and he managed to tank them. He managed to tank them without much reaction, constantly pressuring. Good leg kicks from both fighters overall. But that first round, it felt as if the edge was to Chris Padilla. My apologies. It felt like the edge was to Ismail Bonfim because it felt like Bonfim was doing more, was being more effective. But despite saying that, Chris Padilla felt like the looming threat. He was the one who spent the majority of the initial round walking down Ismail Bonfim. He was the one who kind of cornered and tried to pressure him a lot more. He really was also trying to find his timing and range within that fight, despite the combinations that were landing against him, despite the power shots, despite the takedowns not working. You still saw that he was the one who kind of was that looming threat. Second round came out, still a competitive fight. Ismail Bonfim was still winning the initial stages of the second round, but you also saw that it kind of felt like he was starting to get more exhausted. He looked like he was getting tired at a faster rate in comparison to Chris Padilla. And then, especially after he had that foul against Padilla, you saw that happen a couple of times myself throughout the fight where it felt like Bonfim was fouling Padilla. But you saw Padilla kind of look like he got a little bit of anger after that happened that second time too. And you saw when he was about to end the fight, he was about to stop the fight to like take his break, and then he told the ref, look at the ref and said, fuck it, I'm back in it. So you could see that not only did he look a bit annoyed by that, he also looked like he was the one who was starting to control the pace of the fight by that point. You saw the pendulum start swinging in that direction. You saw Chris Padilla start upping the pace, upping the tempo. His strike started landing more accurately. And then once he started landing elbows, you saw him, once he managed to hit Ismail Bonfim and dazed him enough to start dropping, started actually using those sharp elbows to start dazing him and landing those shots. Then once you had Ismail Bonfim kind of cover up on the ground, I don't know why the ref took that long to stop it, to be honest. You saw Chris Padilla just hitting him. Like a couple of shots went to the back of the head. He readjusted, kept hitting him. Took a little while for the ref to actually acknowledge him because Ismail Bonfim was just on the ground covering up for a couple of seconds. But Chris Padilla managed to get it done, continuing his knockout streak, continuing his undefeated streak. So Definitely looking forward to see how he continues to pair in one of the premier divisions of the UFC, the lightweight division. But it's good to have some new upcoming prospects, especially with everybody who's retiring and moving around. Moving on, this one I was just completely wrong. I thought Muslim Salikov versus Uros Medic would have ended up being a fight that went towards Salikov. Salikov is a good striker, a great striker. Salikov is a very experienced fighter. Salikov is a lot older though. I believe Salikov is 41. I think I believe Salikov is like one of the oldest, if not the oldest fighter in this division as well. But with all of those experiences, I thought Salikov would have been able to dictate the pace, the direction, and adjust to the fight a lot better. That didn't happen. Uros Medic basically went in there and steamrolled him, to be blunt. He went in there, charged forward, just gave him more than he could handle, faster than he could handle. As you can see, there was a total of 11 strikes landed in this fight between both of them, and 8 of them were significant strikes on the favor of Salikov. Meaning the fight ended so fast that's in favor of Medic. I don't know why I keep mixing up everybody's names today. I don't know. I must be tired or something. But it was 8 significant strikes today that all went in the favor of Medic versus the 2 significant strikes. To be honest, I don't even think that these 2 are significant strikes. I think Salikov only landed 2 strikes and they just counted them both as significant because it would look a bit even more embarrassing to say that Salikov didn't land a single significant strike in the fight that he got finished in. Uros Medic basically charged forward, overwhelmed him, knocked him out. That simple. Honestly, a bit embarrassing. Not even a bit. Honestly, an embarrassing performance by Muslim Salikov, especially as somebody who is from the Dagestani, especially as somebody who's from the Dagestani region, and we know a lot of those stereotypes and expectations that come from that area, and to see a fighter from there kind of get dispatched so easily. Definitely, especially such an experienced fighter who's made an over a pretty good name for himself is like honestly a pretty embarrassing performance. Moving on, we got the co-main event. We got Matt Schnell versus Joseph Morales. This fight, I had Matt Schnell. I thought Matt Schnell, once again, I thought another very experienced fighter, but also a very technical fighter, very fast fighter. I thought overall Matt Schnell would have been the one to be able to win this fight by incorporating all of those qualities. Yes, I know that Joseph Morales is a very well touted prospect. I know that he's a very much highly anticipated. I know he's been having great performances thus far. Despite this, I thought Schnell would have been the one to get it done. I thought Schnell would have been faster, cleaner striking, better wherewithal, better adjustments. But Joseph Morales got him out of there. It was quick exchange battle. You saw that Matt Schnell was the one. This all ended when it came to the scrambles. I see that people were talking, and even the announcers were saying, "Oh, like Matt Schnell tried to take him down, and he knew that so and so was Morales was better submission or better grappler." No, I think Matt Schnell actually made the right decision with attempting to take him down. I think that Matt Schnell had the advantage. Oh, when he took him down, slowed the fight down at the right spot, caught him, but Joseph Morales reversed it. That was all it was. Morales had the better scrambles, reversed the position, made that made that adjustment, and was able to. Well, before Matt Schnell was able to actually capitalize on it, scrambled him, got it in when it counted, and just ended the fight. Matt Schnell tried to fight the submission attempt, but he just couldn't get in. Morales locked it up too fast, and it was way too tight. He just went against an opponent that just in that one moment, which all it takes sometimes, in that moment, Morales just acted way too fast and was way too prepared for those positions. And Matt Schnell he got finished. Nothing before he could even properly try to defend it, it was already over. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Not a great prospect we have coming up in Joseph Morales, this time in the flyweight, which is one of my favorite divisions. So let's see how these matchups continue to unfold. Moving on to the main event, we got my boy Randy Brown versus Gabriel Bonfim. Randy Brown went up in smoke, unfortunately. Gabriel Bonfim looked fucking amazing. Bonfim looked like a world beater in this fight. When you watch this fight, you saw everything that Bonfim was working out on. I wanted Randy Brown to win. That was my personal pick. I thought he would have been the better striker, especially with Bonfim being known for his grappling and submissions. I thought Randy Brown had a clear advantage on the feet. That was not the case. Bonfim was targeting that league leg of Randy Brown. He was very prepared for Brown, and you saw it. Brown couldn't even properly find his range because Bonfim was so heavy on that leg. You saw how quickly it got compromised because it was targeted so efficiently. Bonfim was so defensively sound in these exchanges, didn't allow any space, any gaps. He was so aggressive, constantly marching forward in all of these exchanges, kind of smothered Randy Brown a bit when it came to his offense, gave him no space to make adjustments. And when you just saw it, he was targeting him so smoothly. It felt so overwhelming. It genuinely felt for somebody who, as I said in my prediction, that Randy Brown is definitely a top 15 capable fighter. But if there was ever a way to defend your ranking, Gabriel Bonfim did it. Gabriel Bonfim made Randy Brown look like he wasn't in his class. He made him look like he wasn't ready. He easily overwhelmed him, easily smothered his offensive, easily adjusted to anything that Brown attempted. And then when it came to that second round, found that finish. And he made the finish feel like an eventuality, not a possibility. It felt like something that was just gonna happen soon. I thought that Brown would have finished him Bonfim in the fourth or fifth round because I thought that Brown would have found his striking, adjusted to Bonfim's grappling attempts, and then get it done. But instead, it felt like Bonfim had completely analyzed Brown to the point that he didn't even feel threatened by anything he attempted and just got him out of there. I completely disagree with how the stoppage went. Me personally, I like definitiveness. I think the ref should have allowed Bonfim to get that last strike on Randy Brown so that it could have been certain that, yeah, this is a knockout. I agree that Brown completely was knocked out. Like, I think that in that split second, Brown got knocked out and then came back too, which is why he protested. It actually reminds me of Pereira versus Yuri, the one, Pereira versus Prohaska one, where Yuri got knocked out by those elbows and immediately snapped back and the ref stopped. Sometimes we need that definitiveness. I know protect the fighters, but the fighters themselves aren't in favor of those decisions. But in his walkout, there's Bonfim was saying that a lot of people said that he was a future champion. He looked like one tonight. Fantastic performance. Yeah, Randy Brown was my pick. Yeah, Randy Brown's from my country, but Gabriel Bonfim looked fucking amazing tonight. Well, makes me look forward to what he's going to do in the future and some of those other matchups. Based off what I seen, I saw that he called out Colby Covington. We all know Colby is not going to accept that. I'm kind of surprised Colby's still in the top. I'm kind of surprised Colby's still on the roster, to be honest. But we all know Colby Covington is not going to accept a fight against Gabriel Bonfim. He's kind of in the ducking phase right now. But when I look at the welterweight rankings and who I'd want to see Gabriel Bonfim against, I'm thinking somebody like a Jeff Neal. Like, give him, let's see how that matchup looks. I think that'd be Good. I know that it kind of feels like we give all the upcoming prospects and contenders to Jeff Neal, but that's a fight I want to see. Let's see how Gabriel Bonfim matches up against a Jeff Neal. I think that would be a great test and an increase in challenge for him. If he's able to clear that, yeah, we got another one on the hands. But overall, fantastic card, great fight night. Especially, we know what we got next week. We got some good showing from the month of November so far. So let's look forward to this. Very exciting for everything. Great fight night card. Hope y'all all enjoyed yourselves. Until next time, peace.